You wake up before the sun rises. Not because you want to, because someone is screaming at you. Your back aches from the stone floor you slept on. Your hands are bleeding from yesterday. And somewhere in the darkness around you, you can hear other people crying.
Get up!
You don't
and get
remember the
back
last
to
time you
work!
had a choice. What to eat, where to go, whether to speak. Every single decision about your life belongs to someone else now. You're not a person. Not in the eyes of the law. Not in the eyes of Rome. You are property. And today, just like every day before it, you will work until your body breaks. Or you will be punished until you wish it had. Most people picture ancient Rome and see marble columns, toga-wearing senators, gladiators, and golden temples. What they don't picture is the machinery underneath all of it. The people who built those temples, carried those stones, cleaned those homes, fed those armies, worked those mines. At the height of the Roman Empire, as many as 1 in 3 people living in the city of Rome was a slave. 1 in 3. And this is their story. Here's the thing nobody tells you. You didn't choose this. Nobody does. One morning you were a farmer in Gaul, or a fisherman in Greece, or a merchant's child in North Africa. And then Rome arrived. Roman legions swept across Europe, the Middle East, and North Africa for centuries. And wherever they conquered, they took prisoners. Not to kill them, to sell them. After Julius Caesar's campaigns in Gaul alone, roughly 1 million people were enslaved. 1 million. If you survived the battle, you were marched in chains to the nearest slave market, stripped, examined like livestock. A sign hung around your neck, listing where you came from and what you could do. And then a Roman with money decided what the rest of your life would look like. But war wasn't the only way in. You could be born into slavery, because if your mother was enslaved, so were you, automatically, from your first breath. You could be sold by a desperate family who couldn't pay their debts. You could be kidnapped by pirates who sold human beings the way others sold grain. And once you crossed that threshold, there was almost no way back. Freedom wasn't something you earned. It was something that happened to you, only if your master allowed it, and most never did. Your day starts in darkness and ends in darkness. In a wealthy household, you rise before your master. You light the fires, haul the water, clean the floors. You are invisible until you are needed. That's the good version. If you're unlucky, and most were, you end up in the fields. Massive estates stretched across the countryside. Hundreds of workers under armed overseers. You plant, you harvest, you dig, you carry. From sunrise to sunset. No weekends, no sick days, no retirement. You worked until your body
Get inside!
gave out.
Move!
But the fields weren't the worst place. The worst place was the mines. Tunnels barely wide enough to crawl through. No light, toxic air, constant risk of collapse. The average life expectancy, once you went in, less than 3 years. Here's what you need to understand about Roman law.
How
You
dare
had no
you defy
rights.
my command!
None. A Roman
You are
slave
nothing
could not
but
own
my property.
could not sign a contract, could not testify in court, except under torture. Because Roman law considered slave testimony only valid when it was extracted by pain, your master could beat you for any reason, or no reason at all. Roman law gave slaveholders nearly unlimited power over the people they owned. Whipping was so common, it barely warranted comment in historical records. But it got worse. If a master was murdered, Roman law required that every slave in the household, regardless of guilt or innocence, be executed. In 61 AD, a Roman official named Pedanius Secundus was killed by one of his slaves. His household contained 400 slaves. All 400 were executed. In public, the Senate debated whether it was just. They decided it was. The logic was simple. Fear was the only
You
tool
belong
Rome
to
trusted to
Rome.
keep millions of enslaved people from rising up.
Your
And it
sweat
worked.
built
Because when
these
you watched
walls.
400 people die for the actions of
And
one,
here you shall
you
remain.
learned exactly what your life was worth. There are things worse than pain. Roman slaves could not legally marry. They could form relationships, have children, build a family in the shadows of their bondage. But their master could end all of it with a single transaction. You could wake up one morning and your partner was gone, sold to an estate in Sicily. Your child, old enough to work now, loaded onto a cart heading north. And there was nothing you could do. No appeal, no farewell, no explanation. Ancient sources give us rare glimpses into this grief. Slaves who scratched names into walls, who carried tokens of people they'd lost, who mourned in silence because mourning openly was a luxury they couldn't afford. One Roman writer described watching a slave woman cling to her daughter and mark it before a buyer separated them. He wrote it with the same emotional distance he might describe livestock being sorted. That's what made it unbearable. Not just the loss, but that the world around you didn't even pause. You think you know how bad it was. You don't. Some slaves were assigned as lecticariae, human furniture. Essentially, they carried wealthy Romans through city streets and litters, often for hours, in all weather, while their passengers barely acknowledged them as living creatures. Some slaves worked the Phalonicae, Roman laundries where clothes were cleaned by being stomped on in vats of human urine, collected daily from public urinals. All day, every day. Some were sent to the ergastulum, a prison building on large estates where the most troublesome slaves were chained at night and worked in leg irons during the day. But perhaps the most disturbing role was this. Roman gladiatorial schools were staffed almost entirely by slaves. You didn't volunteer to fight in the arena. You were sent there, trained to kill other people for the entertainment of a crowd who cheered or booed your survival. And even if you fought brilliantly, the decision of whether you lived was made by a man in a box seat, turning his thumb. Your life, someone else's entertainment. You thought about running. Every slave did. But Rome had a system designed specifically to make escape feel hopeless. Professional slave hunters called fugitivarii made their living tracking down runaways. They were well-organized, well-connected, and ruthless. If you were caught, and most were, the punishment was branding, a letter F, burned into your forehead, fugitivus, runaway, so that every person who ever looked at your face would know. Some slaves were fitted with iron collars engraved with their master's address and the instruction, return me if found.
I must reach the river.
Archaeologists have recovered these collars, some still locked, some still on.
They cannot catch
there
me
were
now.
slave rebellions. 3 major ones shook Rome to its core. Spartacus, a gladiator, led the most famous, gathering an army of over 70,000 escaped slaves in 73 BC. They nearly changed history. They didn't. When it ended, 6,000 slaves were crucified along the Appian Way, the main road into Rome, stretched across 120 miles, a warning that took weeks to walk past. So, yes, some tried to run, some tried to fight, and Rome made sure everyone knew what happened to them. We talk about ancient Rome like it was a golden age, and in some ways it was philosophy, architecture, law, roads, literature, achievements that shaped the entire Western world. But here is what we forget. Almost none of it was built by free hands. The Colosseum, constructed largely by Jewish slaves taken after the siege of Jerusalem in 70 AD. The grand estates of Rome's senators, maintained by hundreds of enslaved men and women who would never see the inside of a Senate chamber. The wealth that funded Rome's golden age, extracted from human beings who had no say in any of it. Rome didn't just use slavery as an
The
economic
senator's
tool.
banquet was
It made
truly
slavery
divine.
the foundation of
I
its
found
entire
the wine a bit
civilization.
too sweet.
And the people at the bottom of that foundation, the ones who made everything possible, were given no names in the history books, no monuments, no graves most of us can find, just the weight of marble above them. History remembers the emperors, the generals, the philosophers who wrote about human dignity in the houses that slaves kept clean. But the real story of Rome, the story most people never hear, is the story of the millions who had no choice but to hold the whole thing up. They built a civilization that called itself eternal, and they never got to live in it. Think about that the next time you admire the ruins.